Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 things that torture a narcissist. And I'm sure this is something that many of you may be interested to know, because narcissists often seem invincible, unmovable, unfazed, as though there's nothing you could ever say or do that would ever affect them, that would ever move them in any sort of way, as though they're just untouchable. This is how they can often appear at times. But of course, other times you may see the narcissistic rage. But when they've got full control over you, and they're dictating your every move, they're 10 steps ahead of you, it can seem like nothing you do or say could ever affect them. And it can make them seem so powerful. It can make them seem like they're just some kind of monster or demon. So in this video, it's really just about revealing to you that they're really not as powerful as they think they are, and as they're trying to portray to you. So as to make them seem more human in your eyes, because really that's what they are. They're just broken, traumatized people. They're people who have a mental illness. So they're really not as invincible as they seem. And yeah, that's what we're going to discuss in this one. 5 things that torture a narcissist. Let's get into it with number 1. Being ignored or given no attention. Narcissists can't stand being ignored. They need your constant attention and validation. They need your eyes to be on them. They need to be seen, they need to be heard. They need you to be aware of them, to notice them. And if you don't, well, what happens? If they're not getting your attention, if they're not feeling seen, if they're not feeling heard, then they begin to feel ignored, of course. They feel irrelevant, insignificant. And of course, no one likes to feel that way, but remember, narcissists have a false image that they are trying to protect. And so they need you to validate it. They need you to feed into it. It's not self-validated. It's not generated from within. This facade comes from you. It comes from your attention. It comes from you giving something to them. They're not really feeling that way about themselves when they're alone, when they're by themselves. It's running off of your attention, your validation. Thank you for the donation, Alwyn. I appreciate it. But yeah, this is all coming from you. You are their source of supply. You are their fuel. So you're generating the power and energy for them. It's not self-validated. And this is why they can't stand being ignored or given no attention. This is why if you ignore them, if you grey rock, if you simply observe but not absorb the energy that they're sending at you, if you don't take it in as a part of yourself, they become unhinged. They lose their minds because they need you to validate it. They need you to feed into it. It can't be enough for them just to think that way on their own. It has to be a shared fantasy. There has to be input coming from you. So yeah, you know, they may seem invincible. And, you know, they can often be grandiose. They can seem larger than life. But this is it. The only reason of how they're able to be in that state, of how they're able to sustain it, is because of you. You are the one who's making them feel that way. You're making them feel powerful, important, attractive, desirable. This is all coming from your attention and validation, because they're getting you to believe in it. They're brainwashing, indoctrinating you. They manipulated your emotions to change your beliefs and perception of them. So that's all that it really gets. It's coming from your energy, your attention, and it's being twisted to validate a distorted, false self-image. And when you realize that, you realize that they really have no power of their own. It all comes from you. It all comes from your energy and attention. So they're really not invincible, unmovable. They're really not that powerful. And in fact, when they're in that grandiose state, when they seem larger than life, it's really just a reflection of your power, because it's coming from your attention. And if you take your attention away, watch them switch it up very quickly. Watch them get really mad at you. Watch them try to provoke you, bait you into something, seek a reaction out of you. Why? Because it's not self-validated, it comes from you. So that's the first thing. Being ignored, being given no attention. This is something that really tortures a narcissist. The second thing that tortures a narcissist is losing control over someone they once manipulated. So they once had you under their control, in a trance, under a spell, where you were just going along with anything that they displayed to you. You were on autopilot, you were going through the motions, you were in the narcissistic fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. And you were constantly walking on eggshells, doing anything you could to make them feel comfortable. Because it's like any little thing could set them off. They were like loose cannons. And you, as their source of supply, were providing them with a sense of security and stability. You were providing them with a sense of comfort. So of course, if you take that away, if you take away their control over you, if they're no longer able to manipulate you, all of that goes away. They no longer feel secure, comfortable, and instead they begin to destabilize. They fall apart, they crumble, like a house of cards. Because there is no true foundation or structure to their false self, to the illusion that they are displaying to you. It's all a fabrication, an invention. It's not even real. It doesn't even exist. And that's how, without your input, without your feedback, it cannot be sustained. It cannot continue, and gradually it just begins to fall apart because it's not even real. It's something that requires ongoing maintenance. So you have to provide to support it, to prop it up. It can't be generated from within. It's not even real, it's all an illusion. And this is why they can't stand losing control over you, especially since they once had you in their clutches. They once had you within their grasp. So they had a sense of what that felt like to have control over you. And yeah, you know, it made them feel secure, comfortable, stable. So when they lose that, they begin to feel very uncomfortable. And, essentially it's like the same thing as if this couch just suddenly disappeared. It'd like be a scene out of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where Zelensky's machine, unknowingly, he had shrunk the couch. And he went to sit down and then he realized it wasn't even there. And he fell straight to the floor. The same thing with a narcissist. They lose that sense of comfort, security, stability. And not only that, but it becomes a reminder to them that their false image isn't real and that it's not self-generated. And it causes them to feel very insecure. It resurfaces their deep-seated feelings of inadequacy, which formerly they were projecting onto you. And then that's when they begin to realize, they need to regain that control over you because they're not feeling too good by themselves. They feel much better when they have that ability to manipulate you, to have you under a spell, to keep you in the narcissistic fog. So yeah, that's another thing that tortures a narcissist, is when they lose control over someone they once manipulated. Because all that was is to provide them with a sense of security and stability, comfort. But once you're no longer susceptible to their manipulation, then they're left alone with this fantasy by themselves. And that is the last thing that they want. And it's kind of funny when you think about it, because it's like, you look at some of these Instagram models. It looks like they're really having a great time, doesn't it? It looks like they're living their best lives. But that's only because they're getting all of the likes and comments. That's only because people are validating it. It's not something they're truly passionate or enthusiastic about. And so if you take away all of the attention and praise, all of the compliments, it's their worst nightmare. You really think any of those Instagram models, or even some of the extremely successful, wealthy personalities that you see on Instagram, you really think they all just want to be left alone by themselves, perhaps on a deserted island with their self-image? Of course not. If they had the choice, they would rather just have nothing and live in a busy city somewhere where they can still try and garner some form of admiration, rather than to have all of the riches, everything that they want, but living on a deserted island, or being in a place where no one really cares, no one really values those things. Because yeah, it's all fake. It's not something they really care about, that they're really passionate or enthusiastic about. It's all just a means to garner validation, admiration. And so you, as the source of supply, you are the one with the power. That all comes from you. It comes from your energy and attention. If you're finding this video helpful so far, please give it a thumbs up. And now let's get into the third thing that tortures a narcissist. The third thing that tortures a narcissist is seeing others succeed without them. So to understand this, we really have to go back to the beginning of the relationship and understand why they targeted you in the first place. Because it could have been mistaken for genuine admiration of you, your qualities, your accomplishments, your personality, the person that you are. It could be mistaken for that, and arguably Yeah, you know, they admire the things that you have, but they don't want to admire it as a separate part of you. They targeted you out of envy. The only reason they got around you is because they assumed that at some point you could render all of that stuff over to them. They could take it from you. That's the only reason why they wanted to be around you, is because they plan to take those things from you. And of course, once it got to a point where you were setting boundaries, confronting them, exposing their lies and future faking, then they didn't like that. They turned against you, because they didn't want you to have the power and authority in the relationship. Even if it was just a power and authority over yourself, not even over them. You weren't controlling their life. You just wanted to be in control of yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. You have every right to exercise discipline and self-control. Of course, we do not have the right to control another person, but we do have the right to control ourselves and to keep ourselves safe. So you were well within your rights by doing that. But they didn't like it because they came in to steal, to rob you, to take what you have unjustly for themselves. And so this is why they hate it when they see you succeed without them. Because by them taking from you, keeping you down, making you less than who you really are, this was all just to boost their fragile self-esteem, to give them an artificial sense of self-importance. That's all that it was for. And so when you break away, when they have to see you succeed and thrive without them, they begin to feel very insecure because their false identity is based off of you. It's based off of keeping you in a small box, containing you, making you less than who you actually are, and keeping that way. That's what their false identity and their fragile self-esteem is based off of. After they got around you, targeted you out of envy, planned to take from you. And this is why they do not want to see you moving on. They do not want to see you thrive without them. It tortures them, because then they're having to deal with their fragile self-esteem and their false self-image, which is now being invalidated purely by your existence, by your success. The fourth thing that tortures a narcissist is being publicly exposed or embarrassed. At some level, many narcissists do have some level of awareness. It's just that they are in denial. They don't want to reflect on it, to accept it. They want to push it away, deny it, suppress it, keep it down. And so they would hate it if these things were to come to light, if it was to be exposed to the world and generally accepted as a part of them. They want to deny and disown these things that they have done or said. The last thing they want is for it to come back full force at them, because they're trying to get rid of it, dispose of it, sweep it under the rug. And this is why them being exposed is very embarrassing for them. It resurfaces their shame. Because by denying or suppressing these things about themselves, that's what regulates their shame. It's what makes them feel better about themselves, like they're a good person, when deep down they know that they're not. So that's why this is another thing that tortures a narcissist, is being exposed or publicly embarrassed. The fifth thing that tortures a narcissist is realizing they're no longer feared or admired. Because a narcissist always wants one of two things. And it could be one thing from one person and then the other thing from another. But these two things are being feared or being admired. So they've got to have someone in a state of fear, walking on eggshells, and then maybe another source of supply who's admiring them. Someone who they can idealize and view as perfect. It's got to be black and it's got to be white. There has to be a contrast. Someone has to be good and someone has to be bad in any moment, in any situation, at any point in time. They've got to have a contrast of the two. And it's black or it's white. It's all or nothing, perfect or flawed. Because they have an arrested emotional development, so this is how they think. They've never grown past this point to realize that there are gray areas as well, and that no one is inherently perfect or flawed. We are all in between. And, of course, some people maybe lean in more towards perfect or more towards flawed, but it's never going to be all or nothing. But the narcissist doesn't want to accept that, because if it means that about other people, then it means that about themselves as well. So if they have to see that not everything is black and white, that they have to realize that about themselves. It means they can no longer view themselves as perfect, ideal, and they want to view themselves that way because deep down, it's actually the opposite. They believe that they're more flawed than anyone else. And they can't go into that space of viewing themselves as not being all bad. If something triggers them or if they receive any type of criticism, instantly they just feel like they're completely flawed, completely inadequate. And so they're trying to avoid feeling that way about themselves. And this is why they have this black or white mentality where they view other people as either perfect or flawed. And this really pertains to how you respond to them. Can they manipulate your emotions? Can they get you to view them as perfect? If they can, then most often they're going to view you as perfect as well, at least until you begin to figure them out. So initially they will settle for your admiration. They will be satisfied with that, because by you admiring them, it props up the false self-image. It makes them feel like they're something ideal, like there's nothing wrong with them, despite all of the horrible things that they have done to people. And let's not forget the horrible things that were done to them in their childhood. But when you set boundaries, when you don't give in to their feelings of entitlement, when you don't just give them whatever they want, when you don't roll out the red carpet for them, when you're not willing to be their doormat, and instead you set boundaries, you confront them, expose them, and you just realize the truth about them, then they want to provoke fear in you. They want to make you afraid of them. And really what this is just a projection. They're trying to provoke fear in you, because in that moment, with you setting boundaries, with you not giving in to their entitlement, giving them whatever they want, without you validating the illusion, they are the ones who are afraid. And what are they afraid of? They're afraid of being rejected, ignored, exposed, because they can see that you are regaining your awareness after being under a spell in a trance, where previously they had manipulated you. And that's now affecting them because it's bringing the truth to light. It's exposing their darkness. So this is why they then want to make you fear them, because it's just really them projecting these uncomfortable feelings that they feel inside about themselves. They don't want to be rejected. They don't want to be exposed. They don't want to be seen in a negative light. So they put that onto you. They make it out like you're the problem or that something is wrong with you. And they may even use emotional blackmail. And you may wonder, why are they doing this? Why are they turning it against you? Why are they making these sudden accusations against you that aren't even true? And it's because they are afraid, because you are catching on to them. You're confronting them, exposing their lies to future faking. You're not tolerating their grandiose state where they're acting like they're the best thing since sliced bread, and you're not getting any reciprocation. And you're constantly giving out, you're investing in them. So this is why they turn against you. This is why, instead of provoking admiration, now they're provoking fear in you. Because you're seeing through their facade. And it is torturing them. But what really tortures them more than anything else is when you're no longer afraid. When you no longer admire them and you no longer fear them. Few things torture a narcissist more than that. Because the whole point of them provoking these reactions out of you, whether it is admiration or fear, it's also that they don't have to reflect on their feelings about themselves. And as I said, they're projecting the fear onto you once they can no longer garner admiration from you. So how do they feel when you no longer admire them, but then you also no longer fear them as well? How do they feel at that moment? Of course, they feel very afraid. Because remember, they're trying to project that emotion onto you, but you're not taking it. You're not resonating with it, so it stays with them. And so at that moment, they're very afraid. And this is when a narcissist could experience a narcissistic collapse. It comes out of fear. And even when you see them getting angry, it's really just them trying to suppress the fear. But it's all a facade. Deep down, they are cowards. They will act angry, they will rage, they will lash out at you to try and project the fear onto you. And that's all that it's designed to do when they intimidate you, because they are struggling with fear of rejection, invalidation, exposure. That's how they are feeling in that moment. And they don't like how that feels because it takes them right back to their trauma in childhood when they once felt very afraid. They were terrified of abandonment or as being seen as a bad child. And so when they're unable to manipulate you and you no longer validate this facade, it takes them right back to childhood. It puts them right back into that fearful state. Because this fear is an emotion that they learned in childhood. And they're doing everything they can to avoid ever having to deal with that emotion. Because what are they really afraid of? They're afraid that they're just inherently bad, or that something is wrong with them, that they're not good enough, that they will never be good enough for anyone. And what really prolongs their torture, their anguish, is that they don't ever want to reflect on it. They don't ever want to deal with it. And this is why they stay stuck in that state, that cycle, where they're always having to treat you in these, what eventually become very predictable ways. Because it's a fear of feeling inadequate, being seen as inadequate. Being seen as inadequate because of how it makes them feel about themselves. And that's really what's at the core of it. And this is why they act this way. This is why they can often seem very jealous, paranoid. This is why they're so quick to betray you. Because they're trying to avoid reflecting on their feelings of inadequacy. And even from the very beginning, when they created a false character, it was all because they felt inadequate. And all of the negative, harmful things that they do, again, it's all out of inadequacy. They choose evil over doing good because they believe they're not good enough to be good. They believe that no one would ever want them on the good side. As a result of what was done to them in their childhood, what they were told about themselves, how they were made to feel about themselves, and of course the things that they have done to other people. So they don't believe they could ever be good enough, that anyone would ever accept them. And that's really what's at the core of it. This is why they get angry. This is why they rage. And this is what tortures them more than anything. And this is why, if you go back to the 5 things that I've said that torture a narcissist: being ignored or given no attention, losing control over someone they once manipulated, seeing others succeed without them, being exposed or publicly embarrassed, realizing they're no longer feared or admired. It all comes back to the same thing. And I know it seems very extreme. It's such a horrible disorder, but this is all what it comes back to. This is why they act that way. And the more narcissistic someone is, the less likely that they are to ever accept this truth. Because typically this realization, it comes from having empathy for other people. And that's really what guided me to my spiritual awakening in 2018. And, as I've spoken about before, in 2017, I attempted to take my own life. And, again, when people reach that point where they no longer want to live anymore, it's really just that they feel that they're not good enough, that they're broken somehow, that they're just not of value to anyone, to society. And yeah, it's a very difficult thing to go through. But even narcissists, they go through this as well. But when they feel inadequate, when they feel like they're not good enough, it's not about other people. It's not about them not being good for them. It's more, they just don't feel good about themselves. And the feelings are so intense that they may just collapse and not want to live anymore. And some narcissists may even take their own lives. I would say that it's less common, but it does happen. I mean, typically they have so many sources of supply, enablers, flying monkeys, that never happens. And instead they stay stuck in a cycle, avoiding that dark space in their minds that they don't want to go into, that they don't want to reflect on for the rest of their lives. Never knowing what it's like to be real. Because, you know, if that's inside of you, if that's a part of you, the first step to being authentic is to accept that, is to accept the feelings of inadequacy. And, you know, this is what they project onto us. This is how they make us feel. And this is why it's so important for us to work through these things with a coach or therapist. But a lot of this, after going through narcissistic abuse, it really gives the self-esteem, feeling like we're no good for ourselves or anyone else. And, you know, that's simply not true. Have narcissists try to make you feel that you're not good for anyone? You can always have value to bring to the world. So never let them make you think that way. They want to make you feel that way about yourself because that's how they feel about themselves. And of course, how could they feel good about themselves after all of the things they've done to you? And this is why they're constantly trying to project their fear, their shame onto you. So yeah, this is what it comes down to. This is why there are these things that torture narcissists. Because this is the core issue for them. Feelings of being broken, inadequate. And that's just it. I mean, if we're going to be honest about it, they are broken, they are inadequate. Because they don't want to accept it. A person who accepts that they can be better and that they have done things wrong, they have harmed people. A person who accepts that has no limits to the change that they can do in the world. If you believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything. And this is really what it comes down to. And to me, this is really what it means to have a spiritual awakening, is to realize that despite your flaws, despite your weaknesses, despite the things that you have done wrong, it all comes down to your belief about yourself. That's what it all comes down to. Do you believe that you're good enough to make that change, to make that difference? Despite your brokenness, despite your flaws, despite how you feel about yourself, do you still believe in yourself no matter what? And if you do, you can accomplish anything in life. Same thing for the narcissist. They can change, they can heal. If they believe it, if they really want to. And this is why they don't change, is because they don't have that belief. They don't believe that they can heal. If they did, then they would heal. But yeah, it all comes down to that belief. And this is why, once you get away from the narcissist and their indoctrination, watch how your life begins to change. I've heard from so many people about their success stories after they moved on from the narcissist. When you're around them, everything is just horrible. With their negative energy, with their negative feelings about themselves, their feelings of inadequacy, which they project onto you, it just creates an undesirable reality. But once you get away from them and you develop that belief in yourself, everything begins to change. It's a paradox. And I noticed this in my own life. When I was around narcissists, it was just failure after failure, disaster after disaster. Because when you're around that energy, you're around their feelings of inadequacy, which they project onto you. You start to feel that way about yourself, like you're no good, like you're broken, because they're putting it onto you. But once you get away from them and you start validating yourself, you can accomplish anything. You really can. Because it all starts with your belief about yourself. It all starts by accepting it first. Because this is the mistake that the narcissist makes, is that they just go off and create a false identity that's perfect. And this is why they never manifest anything, because they haven't dealt with the core wounds first. The first step is accepting that, yes, okay, this is how it made me feel. And then reframe the belief. And don't just make it up in your mind, but look for evidence. And test yourself, set goals, make it real. Accomplish things, accomplish good things, do good deeds, and prove it to yourself that no, this belief is not true. This is not about living a lie like the narcissist. It's about proving to yourself that this is real, that you are unlimited, because you really are. And it all begins with your belief. Your belief determines everything in your life. And, this is really what it is. This is what produces incredible change and improvement in a person's life, is when they work with a therapist or a coach, and it's really all about taking you back through those experiences, identifying how it made you feel, accepting it. Because once you accept it, you can then process it and let it go. And then you can redefine yourself and your reality. You can rephrase everything. And it's not about just giving it a false meaning, like just acting like everything's just perfect. That's not what it is. It's about letting it go and then setting small goals and proving to yourself that you're not what they try to make you believe, what they try to project onto you. And this is really good. This is what makes my videos and my coaching so effective, because I take people through the trauma, through the pain in a safe space. And then gradually, as they process it, we can then create new beliefs that are actually far more accurate, because the beliefs that they instilled with you are false. It's just a projection of how they felt about themselves. But it's all feelings. I mean, whatever you feel becomes your reality. It becomes true. And this is why I focus on feeling good as much as I can. Because your feelings, your beliefs create your reality. It's the feelings behind the beliefs. And this is why we can see people who suffer from depression and nothing ever gets better. Because it's their feelings that are perpetuating it. And this is the epiphany that I had, when I was depressed, when I was suicidal, is that it was my own feelings that were creating this. So I thought, why not feel something else? Why not feel something different? Of course, accept and process those negative feelings first. But really, the world is your oyster. You can feel whatever you want after you've processed the negative emotions, because, you know, it's no good being like the narcissist and just acting like everything's great, you feel good, when deep down you don't really feel that way. How you really feel deep down and in your subconscious mind, that's what's going to manifest. That's what's going to create your reality. And so it's about going deeper into those suppressed emotions, dealing with those first, and then connecting back to more higher positive emotions. Because once you remove all of that, once you remove all of the negativity, naturally you're going to feel good. So yeah, that's it. That's the 5 things that torture a narcissist. I hope it was helpful for you. And if it was, please give it a thumbs up. Let's get this video out there. And let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. If you have any questions, I read your comments every day. Let's start a discussion. If you're new here, subscribe. Click on notifications so that you will be notified. If you would like guidance and support your healing journey, book a one-on-one with me today by going to narcsurvivor.co.uk. Your donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You can donate by going to my PayPal. It's paypal.me/narcsurvivor. And also, I am available on Instagram. You can follow me. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. Thank you for joining me on another Narc Survivor live video. And I will talk to you in another one very soon.